Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's Prime Time. I'm your host Sri Iyer, and today I have the pleasure of company of JVC Sreeram, and we're going to try and make this a fortnightly process where on every alternate Thursdays we'll be listening to JVC Sreeram and Karthik Gopinath. Karthik Gopinath is up for next Thursday, so do tune in next Thursday too. But before we get into our today's topic, which is, I guarantee you it's going to be very interesting, is that please do like this channel. We would like it to reach as many people as possible. We're going to jump right into the subject. Sreeram, Namaskaram, and welcome to P Guru's channel.
Namaskaram, sir. Hope all well.
Yes, all is well, and I hope the same with you and your family, JVC. And I want to start by, asking you a straight question. How many people are actually controlling this DMK government? Meaning, like there are murmurs that there are not one centers of power, but there are three centers of power. Is it true? And in that case, which power center does Mr. PTR, who is the person that we are going to discuss at some length, belong to?
So, see, it is a known fact that there are multiple power centers as far as this present DMK government is concerned. The state is led by the Honorable Chief Minister, Mr. DMK Stalin. His son is a very important component, which is called as the kitchen cabinet, and Mr. Udayanithi Stalin, who is looked at as an heir apparent for the throne. And then you have the son-in-law of Mr. Stalin, Mr. Sabareesan, who happens to be probably called as an intellectual side or a conscience keeper of Mr. M.K. Stalin. There is also Dayanidhi Maran, who is the brother of Kalanidhi Maran, who owns the Sun Pictures and the MP and a former union minister. There is also Mrs. Kanimori, who happens to be the stepsister of Mr. M.K. Stalin. So there are multiple power centers. There is absolutely no two ways about it. And Mr. PTR Painivel Rajan certainly does belong to Mr. Sabareesan's camp, for a simple reason that it was upon the insistence of Mr. Sabareesan that Mr. PTR was inducted into the DMK, first as an MLA and then as now the Finance Minister of Tamil Nadu. I hope I've answered this question because they are related to each other. And on the second thing, Mr. Sabareesan himself became the son-in-law of Mr. Stalin because of the relationship and the proximity Mr. Sabareesan has towards the erstwhile royal family of Mr. PTR's generation.
So you have actually segued me to the next point right away. Viewers, you perhaps don't know much about the grandfather and the father of Painivel Tyagarajan, and we are going to take a quick trip down memory lane where we're going to present you with their lineage and why they consider themselves like, we are chief minister material and so on and so forth. Part of the understanding of the airs that this guy puts on, Mr. PTR, can be understood from this lineage because there is a sense of entitlement. After all, what else does Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi have? So you get the idea. So let's take a quick look at a slideshow here and what we have now. And JVC, you can start talking to this. This is the grandfather of PTR, PT Rajan, and his claim to fame was that he was a chief minister of Madras presidency. Great, except there is always a small detail that you need to understand. It wasn't as if he was there for a long time. He was there for 4 months and 20 days, and he is bookended on both sides by Raja Bobili. Raja of Bobili stepped down, this man became chief minister, and Raja Bobili came back in. I'm sure there was some, I don't know what palace intrigues that took place at that point. You can talk to JVC, then we will have his son, which is the father of PTR and so on. Please take it away.
So Mr. P.T. Rajan was a very influential person in the Justice Party at that point in time. It was around 1920s and 30s, and if I'm right, if my historically records are right, around 1937-38, he became the chief minister of Madras Presidency, then Madras Presidency. He was a very influential figure in the Justice Party. He happens to be one of the icons of the Justice Party, and he was also the chief minister for an interim period. And he also had his differences of opinion with Mr. or E.V. Ramaswamy Nayakar or Periyar, whom we call. And He had his friendship with him. He had his differences of opinion with him. And Justice Party did not want to contest the election post-independence. And Mr. P.T. Rajan did contest elections from Kambam and also from Madurai North, if I'm right. And in Kambam, he had a resounding victory, and he did lose the Madurai North seat. They were the ancestral protectors of Madurai Meenakshi Amman Temple. There is also a story that he was played an important role in the installation of Ayyappa idol in Sabarimala today. So they have a long history, and they also have an history of being a rebel and being dissidents and being a privileged and aristocratic family who owned huge acres of land, had a lot of influence in the British Raj time, and had deep pockets, and also had a great influence on the Justice Party, and also had dissidents of the Justice Party and Mr. Periyar and Annadurai.
Absolutely. And viewers, you can go back and look at the video that we had put out of my conversation with Dr. Subramanian Swamy about DMK, and in which he deals at length with the beginnings of the Justice Party, how this happened, and so on and so forth. So that's information for you. So let's get back to the father of Panivel Tyagarajan, PTR. This is his father. Can we have a little bit of history about this gentleman?
He is a very, very well-renowned person. In fact, he was one of the few people in DMK. You can see him with Vibhuti and Kungumam on his forehead. That speaks a lot, because this was a party which expelled, or probably Shivaji Ganesan went out of the party for a reason that he went to Tirupati temple. That was the reason why Shivaji Ganesan was out. And this man was again an extremely independent person. He was in the DMK party. And these are people, who had a lot of influence. In 1989, when DMK came to power, this gentleman was denied the seat. In 1996, he contested and won from Madurai and became the Speaker of the Tamil Nadu Assembly. In fact, he was the only person in those days who used to put vibhuti on his forehead and kungumam, and people used to ask him, is it a kind of a dissidence which you're showing? He would say, he would have an air around him and he would talk. He was knowledgeable, mind you, he was very knowledgeable, but he also had those kind of comments and sarcastic comments, and he would go around as an aristocrat as far as Madurai is concerned. He had tussle with the present Chief Minister's brother, M.K. Alagiri. And 2001, Mr. Alagiri ensured that this gentleman was the Speaker of the Tamil Nadu Assembly, lost the Assembly elections. And he came back in 2006 to be the Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowment Minister. And unfortunately, within few days, when he was traveling from Chennai to Madurai, this gentleman collapsed and he passed away. And he also had an history of, having his own altercations with the then Chief Minister, Dr. Kalaignar Karunanidhi. And there is a rebelliousness. They have their independent mind, and they feel that they're larger and bigger than the party. And that's how the entire lineage has, been performing over a period of years.
So let's come back to the latest controversy, which happens to be that two things that happened in the recent times. One is Mr. PTR skips the GST meeting, in an important meeting where they were going to discuss bringing petrol into the GST, because if that had happened, then the price at the pump would have been reduced theoretically by 25 to 30 rupees per liter. That would have been a substantial reduction. Of course, it would have taken, meant a big hit for the states. But what happened, do you think? Because there is a lot of stories floating around. What really happened? How can a state's finance minister, a state of the size of 7 to 8 crores, ignore attending such an important meeting in favor of going to a baby shower?
Okay. Mr. Iyer, I think we need to understand the context of it. The context of it was Mr. M.K. Stalin, in all his earnestness, had asked the central government to bring fuel, that is petrol and diesel, into GST. Mind you, the LPG, the cylinder, is already into GST with a 5% GST, 2.5 SGST state and 2.5 central government. Now, so the thing was, it has been going around for the last 8 to 10 months that should fuel be brought under GST, should the prices come down, because economists have always felt that if the petrol and diesel are brought under GST, the prices would be somewhere around 65, 75. That's the range we are talking about. So the DMK had been in favor of this. And once they came back to power, when Mr. Tyagarajan became the Finance Minister of Tamil Nadu, he was categorical in saying that we do not want to bring petrol and diesel into GST. This was a flip-flop. This was a big U-turn. And then he went to the GST meeting, and he had probably arguments inside the meeting or not, we are not very sure. But Goa's finance minister had his own claim, and there were murmurs going around that this man threw his air around in the meeting. And he came back and he started talking about the kind of loans and arrears and the dues which the center owes to state government, which the finance minister of India, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, had clearly said, if there's something to say, let him share those details with me. And then on the 17th of this month, the GST meeting was scheduled in Lucknow, and this gentleman was asked, the Honorable Finance Minister was asked, are you not attending this meeting? To which he replied, saying that the invitation came very late for me, because it's not an invitation, it's an obligation. He has a seat in the council. The decisions are made unanimous in the GST council. It is not done by voting. So he has an important say. And it was discussed very clearly right in the beginning that this meeting is going to think and talk about including petrol and diesel into the GST, which is a landmark and an important decision which the citizens of India across state are looking forward to. And then he said the invitation came late and I had other engagements, and I'm just going to Valagapu now. I'm going to a baby shower after this, and I have an important meetings to attend. And that's what triggered this entire controversy. But that's not the only thing. There's a lot of history behind it. Quick history. I'll come to that a little later.
Yeah, go ahead.
So
I want you to continue that backstory, because there's another narrative that came.
So the backstory is that, the point is that the finance minister of Tamil Nadu has actually been a kind of a corporate employee. He was there in Lehman Brothers when Lehman Brothers fell. We do not know what was the role he played, but he keeps talking about, every time he comes and addresses the press conferences and the media, he talks about, I've come from, I've studied in MIT, I'm from the University of Buffalo, I've done this, I've done my psychology for 5 years, I've presided over Lehman Brothers, I've been the head of Asia Pacific in the Standard Chartered in Singapore, and my grandfather is this, my father is this, and that's the kind of thing. And that sometimes, in fact, carried on. And when a reporter asked, when can we expect the petrol and diesel prices to be reduced, because they gave in their manifesto the promise of reducing it by 5 rupees and 3 rupees, he said, Tedi soningla, Tedi sonoma, which means, did we tell you the date? And then a lady reporter asked, உங்களுக்கு மூளை இருக்கா, அறிவு இருக்கா, உங்களுக்கு அறிவோட தான் கேக்குறீங்களா, உங்களுக்கு அறிவு இருக்குல்ல, நீங்க கேட்க வேண்டியது தானே, அவங்களது கேட்க சொல்றீங்க, which means, in Tamil, basically, these are slangs and words which are not the right kind. And in Twitter, he has been going ballistic all over. Everywhere he has been going ballistic and commenting people. And he went on to the extent of commenting on Mr. Annamalai that you are a split personality. And then he took upon a BJP woman spokesperson saying that you drink cow urine or what. So these are the kind of statements which he makes. And this is the latest one, this is the latest one which came in today morning, which he had deleted a little later. So these are the kind of alterations which have been going on. And in fact, there was a rumor which floated around by Mr. Rajagopal, who's a very senior journalist from Delhi, who has access to several, even to the Prime Minister of the country. And he had said that he had heard that a senior person who would like to stay anonymous had mentioned that Mr. PTR Palanivel Tyagarajan demanded for a separate flight for the GST Council meeting, which was denied by Mr. MK Stalin. So as a result of which he did not go, to which again he made some very lewd comments, or I won't say lewd comments, weird comments in Twitter. And this war of words have been going on for the last few days. And it has been a kind of, it was arrogance on display. It was a kind of, it came out that he was under pressure. He was under pressure to prove something to somebody. What is it? As we go along, we can discuss.
Actually, absolutely. So let's dwell upon, you said that he and the son-in-law of MK Stalin are related. Can you just touch upon the relationship? Is it like a close relationship, first cousin, second cousin? How is the relationship?
Yeah, I think so. I will not be in a position to tell you. I've heard that it is a close relationship. How close it is, I'm not privy to that information, but I've heard that it's a close relationship. They are in a kind of a close family knit. Not that they are brothers, blood brothers, something of that kind, but it could be a cousin, first or second cousin kind of stuff.
So, quick question, follow up on that. What are Sabareesan's credentials?
Sabareesan's credentials. Sabareesan wields a lot of influence inside the party.
No, education-wise. I'm talking about.
I think he's moderately educated. He's moderately educated. I don't think he has gone to the best of schools or colleges. I've not heard about those kind of things. So he's more of a kind of a backroom person as far as DMK is concerned till the time Mr. Stalin became the chief minister. In fact, most people have not even seen his photograph on the social media. It is only after he sworn in as the chief minister, people got to see the photographs of Mr. Sabareesan. Mr. Sabareesan has been credited with bringing Mr. Prashant Kishore into the team. He has been credited with bringing PTR Panivel Tyagarajan from the corporate life to that of the party and made him the MLA the first time. There is a rumor that it was he who suggested his name to become the finance minister of Tamil Nadu. These are the kind of things. And Sabareesan does hold a lot of, cards up his sleeve, and is influential. There is absolutely no two ways about it.
Well, we'll have to wait and see if he's going to do a Chandrababu Naidu on the DMK party, but we're not going to hold our breath about that. This is something that's going to play out in the days and months and years to come. So next point here is, so the GST council meeting has again deferred on including fuel into the GST, which is unfortunate. They should have done it. Now, there is one other statement that came from a very senior DMK official who was suggesting that Mr. PTR rein in his caustic comments. And KTS Ilangovan, I think his name is, he's a okay, so TKS Ilangovan is a fairly senior person. And how much of a credibility does one attach to his comments? Does it mean that he is speaking the voice of Mr. MK Stalin, or is it something just he did it in his individual capacity? Your thoughts?
So we are not very sure whether he was speaking on capacity of MK Stalin or not, but certainly that is the voice of many senior DMK leaders in the party. Party sources tell me that there are several senior ministers. There are several, because ministers are basically DMK leaders. They're all district presidents and hold important position in the headquarters. So all these people, there is a unanimous view that, in fact, I have heard that there are younger guys like, Anbil Poyamori, Magesh Poyamori, who goes around his business in a very calm and a decent manner. There is Shekhar Babu, there is Ma Subramaniam, there is Durai Murugan, who's one of the most senior persons in the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam. And then there is Ponmudi, Nehru, and none of them make any noise. And all these people, I am hearing that are of the view that this gentleman must stop his tantrums in the media, in the social media, and in the Twitter. And what Mr. Ilangovan said was, it was in response to an interview conducted by Sandhya Ravishankar, who is a very kind of a neutral journalist, not like another journalist, who behave like they are on the payrolls of DMK. She asked, and for which Mr. TK Ilangovan said, Mr. PTR Panivel Tyagarajan gets to get provoked. He gets provoked, and he should not. He should understand that he should not be speaking like this in a public forum or with a press conference. And he quoted the example of Mr. Karunanidhi on how he would conduct the press conferences and how he would befriend the media and actually speak that I am also one among you. And he said that should be the way you should conduct himself. And party members are not happy was clearly mentioned. And my sources say that Mr. Stalin had spoken with PTR Panivel Tyagarajan in terms of reining in and asking him to stop these kind of tantrums, but it doesn't seem to be stopping. I think PTR Panivel Rajan is under a lot of pressure. Okay, when I say a lot of pressure, expectations are very high. Some of his statements have been ideologically tangential to what the DMK's talk has always been. Yeah, he even called Jaggi Vasudeva a fraud, which are all truth. Okay, that's what he has taken on everybody. There is not a single individual whom he has not taken on. So he went on to tell Mr. TK Ilangovan today that if I give you 2 kgs of shrimp, you old man, you will talk everything or anything. 2 kgs of shrimp. That's what he meant. It was very, very insulting. And he later deleted the tweet. But that's the kind of thing which is going around. So I feel that because DMK as a party believes in populism, DMK as a party believes on social welfare. That is, and there are several promises which they've given in the manifesto. And Mr. PTR Panivel Tyagarajan wants to do exact opposite of what had been mentioned in the manifesto of the DMK. Okay, which is where the conflict is arising. And also the fact that he comes from the heritage, a tradition, an aristocratic family, having gone to the best of the colleges and the best of corporate organizations, he feels probably that he can do a better job as a CM of Tamil Nadu than even Mr. M.K. Stalin.
Well, JVC, I have a request for Mr. PTR. I think it is time you put your money where your mouth is. During your grandfather's tutelage or trusteeship in the Meenakshi Sundareswara temple, a case was won by the temple. The case was decreed by a Supreme Court full bench led by the then Chief Justice, Mr. Hidayatullah. It has to do with the property of Vandiyur, which belonged to the Meenakshi temple, and this was falsely given back to the dubious owners by one tehsildar, and I wonder how many kilos of shrimps was given to him, but it happened under DMK's watch in 1968. You may want to fix that thing, because you think you are so theist, you are so God-fearing, your paramparyam has been of servitude to Meenakshi Sundareswara temple. Please take care of this. I challenge you. At least see if you can even respond to what happened there. Sir, I'm sorry to go and diverge on this one, because I feel this person thinks he's very pompous. That's how I see it. And unfortunately for him or for any state finance minister with GST, there is very little a state can do with its finances. There's not much you can do except being fiscally prudent. And that is not something that DMK knows how to do. So you are starting out with 0 for 2 in a test match. And that's what the problem is. Anyway, that's just my comments. JVC, last point before we throw open the floor for questions. Your thoughts on DMK pandering and dragging this NEET out again and again, even though clearly they know that this is not going to work, that they cannot make Tamil Nadu students be exempt from NEET in order to join medical colleges. They keep doing this. It's a world-known secret that DMK politicians, ADMK politicians, perhaps even other party politicians own private medical colleges for which they were charging crores for admission, and that's where the money was. This is the main reason why they don't want NEET. But why does this party continue on, putting mud on our head? They're looking stupid, in my opinion.
Can I take a couple of minutes before I come to this particular question? I want to talk about something about the Mr. PTR, because there is something which people may be knowing or people may not be knowing. See, I was not praising Ponmudi or Nehru or anybody. What I'm trying to tell is, they have not behaved or tweeted the way in which Mr. PTR has been going on and doing. That's the point which I want to say. And Mr. PTR, in fact, he was there when Lehman Brothers collapsed. We do not know what role he played. And he's talking about it. And number two, the bank which is functioned in Asia, what he talks about, the head of Asia, it got closed off. We do not know how many banks, he has been cause for the collapse. And now, probably the kind of ideology which he has, he could probably be the, disaster for TN economy too, provided, probably whatever he talks about is good, but there's something else which has been pulled in by the DMK ideology. So it is in two different directions it is moving on. And this is where the entire challenge for Mr. PTR is lying. He is under pressure. He is having he's comparing himself, and probably because of his family traditions and where he had got educated, which is a privilege which he has got, he feels he can even become the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. That's what his feeling is. And that's what is coming out again and again and again. And as far as your NEET question is concerned, because it's another one which I can do for an hour. But what I want to tell is, I want to make a very important comment in your show now. Mr. Justice A.K. Rajan has gone on record today saying that do not ask me any question on data. Because they are talking about the social justice has been hammered because of NEET, which is far from truth, which is far from reality. I have all the papers, the tabular column. What the data talks about NEET and what Justice A.K. Rajan wants us to believe is something completely different. If you look at it, from 2010-11 to 2020-21, let me give just one snapshot. 46.89% BC students, 2010-11, and 2020-21, 47.47. What's the problem? OC, 3.73, 2010-11, 2020-21, 3.60. Look at it from any parameter. BC Muslim, which is called as 4.32 in 2010-2011, now 4.73. You can look from any angle. There is no injustice. And when they compile a report, they should say who are the people whom they spoke with. They've said we received 88,000 responses through mails, through messages, through drop messages. But who gave you those things? He is not willing to own the data. If a 166-page or 165-page report is published, every comma, every full stop, every word which goes into that document will have to be owned by the person who is heading that committee, which is not the case. This is the case where the conclusion has already been written. The epilogue has already been written. And they did everything trying to say this is where it is leading to. Now, when you take up such an exercise or an intervention, it is bound to fail. And it has failed. When the journalist asked him, you are saying 99% of students who have passed NEET have taken coaching. Where did you get that data? He says, don't ask me. Don't ask me for data. Now, without data, you can't publish a report of this kind. So this is something where a reverse engineering was done. I hope my communication is clear on that.
Absolutely. I hear you.
The climax, the conclusion has already been written down, and now we will find a way to see what all data supports it. And unfortunately, they miserably failed. Let me share with you one more thing. This is going to be astounding. A.K. Rajan's report said, Justice A.K. Rajan's report said that people who are poor are getting deprived of MBBS seat through NEET. Now, I have this report, table 7.29 in Justice A.K. Rajan's committee. The thing is, percentage distribution of students' admission for MBBS per parent's income, annual income, less than 2.5 lakhs and greater than 2.5 lakhs. In 2010-2011, 32.91% of students whose parents had income of less than 2.5 lakhs got admission into MBBS through NEET from Tamil Nadu. In the year 2019-20, this went up to 42.55%. In the year 2020-21, 41.05% of students whose parents have annual income of less than 2.5 lakhs have got admission into MBBS through NEET quota. Same time, greater than 2.5 lakhs, 2010-11, 66.54% of students got admitted whose parents had an income of about 2.5 lakhs. Today, 58.95. When I say today, it's 2020-2021. 58.95, which means the students coming from affluent background percentage has come down, and students coming from economically poor background have gone up from 32.9 to 41.05. What does this have to say?
Well, he's being very he's presenting a version of his truth, and the truth, actual truth, is something else. The sad part is, we keep getting all these things. This is all aimed at a certain section of the audience, and I can guarantee you, JVC, and you know this probably, all the DMK channels will go to town trying to say that this NEET this, the depressed are not getting their fair share, conveniently not omitting to place the data. However, many social media channels are now taking that report, dissecting it, showing it for what it is, and we hope that you don't take our word for it. You can watch other channels also. Many have done a very clinical dissection of this report, and you can make your own decisions. JVC, final thought, then we can call it a wrap, because we don't have any questions today.
Yeah. Final thought is, in the words of, I was just doing a show in Mr. Kolagala's TV. Kolagala Srinivas was just sharing on NEET, which will be published tomorrow. He was saying that in 1967 or 69, DMK government formed something called the Raja Mannar Committee on Center-State Relations. They talked about Article 370. It talked about various subjects. It was about more powers to states and all those stuff. And even today, it is being referred to by many people. Now, same way, A.K. Rajan's committee report will also be lying, and they will be talking about it. They'll be making politics about it. So that's one. As far as Mr. PTR Panivel Tyagarajan is concerned, DMK has been an extremely disciplined party. And now, June, July, August, September, 4 months have passed, 140 days have gone. We are seeing the first sign of internal turmoil and protest and people talking in different languages. I leave it to your viewers to conclude and decide what's happening in the state of Tamil Nadu.
Thank you very much, Sreeram. And viewers, do like, subscribe, and join our membership program. We'll be back again a fortnight from now to talk to JVC Sreeram on contemporary topics. This was an eye-opener as far as I think the audience is concerned, because I learned a lot of new things about why this person's feeling of entitlement comes from. Thank you very much, sir, and we'll be back again soon. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you very much. My pleasure.